is being repaved here, we wouldn't require a permit for that. If the street was being widened or something like that, then we would require a permit. But when you see the MWRD markings out there, that's because we have a sewer that runs through there. So whenever they go and they do something, or anybody throughout the county, whenever they go to do some sort of excavation, they call Julie. And
Right.
the different entities go out and mark their utilities, and that's why our markings are out there. But I'll go back tomorrow and see if we've got any permits pulled in that area, or maybe we should have had some. I'll have our field people go and take a look at it and see what was done out there.
Well, we were just
We'll get a better
curious
answer for that.
to know
Now,
if
it's-
it was an improvement or if it was just a repair, you know?
Well, I'm assuming if they contacted our permit unit inquiring and they said it was a maintenance project, then it was a maintenance project. But I don't know if they I don't know all the details. All I know is I remember this, we were asked this before, and we did say that the markings out there were because we have a sewer out there.
Mhm.
But I'll do a little bit more digging and see what was going on with that.
Yeah, we did learn that it wasn't your project, that it was, like you said, just the marking. I
Right,
just
so let me do a little bit more digging on that. And when you start to talk about development and redevelopment projects, and we have an ordinance in place, and certain thresholds trigger certain things have to be done. If it's a non-residential development and the ownership is greater than 3 acres, then we require that stormwater detention be provided. If the disturbance is half an acre, the property ownership's half an acre or more, then we require that 1 inch of runoff from the new asphalt or whatever impervious surface is put in there is captured in some sort of green infrastructure control. So as far as how that factors into what we're doing here, we look at the existing land use, we look at what the flows are being generated based on that, and we don't really get into every little development that's going on, because our permit group is going through that and they're making sure they're following the regulations. We can't make someone that's doesn't trigger a requirement in our ordinance do something because it doesn't, you don't have the rules in place to require them to do that. So they have to be over our thresholds for the detention to be required, for the volume control to be required, the floodplain management rules and regulations. The village has pretty stringent detention standards themselves. So those, as places are developed and redeveloped, they have to go through a permitting process. They can't cause problems elsewhere. And that's kind of how it goes.
We have a comment in the back.
Do you know if that development is in a floodplain? That
I
Right
don't,
next to the
I don't
detention
know,
pond?
I don't know.
You
I
could probably
can,
look on the map.
I don't know. Maybe the village staff could comment on that.
It's an Oak
No,
Forest.
It's in Oak Forest.
It's in Oak Forest.
The property we're talking about is
Okay.
on the northeast corner of Oak Forest where Food for Less is.
Yes,
Oh,
well,
by
if
the
it's in a
detention
floodplain,
pond, yeah.
they have to follow the floodplain permits. I'm not familiar with the development or the permit, but, you know, we also have, Helen, and you came to some of our meetings when we did the watershed
Right.
management work, so you know it was, not the smoothest process. There were a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about what that would do to development out, out years. So we had to create an existing development plans list. So if a town had an area they knew they were gonna develop and they were gonna get into a permit by May 1st, they would be able to follow the old requirements. So the location that you're talking about, if you give me the address, the intersection, we can look it up and see where they fit in with our ordinance.
I believe I did send it to you.
And yeah, the requirements
We
are.
did actually take a quick look at that and contacted the village, or the city of Oak Forest. And they indicated that the detention, that development was going to be connected to the existing detention ponds.
Oh my God, that's even worse.
No,
How
but
does that work?
But see, these ponds are sized, you know,
Oh my
built.
God.
Sometimes the pond is built to serve more areas than are developed at that time. And so they're permitted to tie into it later down the road, because they're sized for that.
if I could just reiterate one thing that we showed up here on our exhibit, is that the area upstream of the Oak Creek detention pond
Is the golf course.
is the golf course and some other limited areas in Oak Forest.
They are kitty corner, literally.
There's about 600 or so acres upstream of that point.
Mhm.
Once you get past that point, once you get past the detention pond, there's 900 plus acres that are feeding back into the creek. So that detention pond, that flow can't get to that detention pond, it's already downstream of it. So you're picking up a lot more flow once you get past that point. And that's generally the source of where the runoff is coming in and leaving the creek. And I think the other thing maybe just to emphasize is that the flooding, I think,
This is the George Dunn area.
Yeah.
Right where that purple dot
Yeah.
is.
And this is the Oak Creek Plaza.
Yeah.
That's right, it's right to the right of it.
So that detention
And
pond
the
is
development
the
is
water
right next
that's
to it.
south of them, not north of them.
Right, because it's, yeah, but it,
And it's not released into the creek?
yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is, yeah.
the detention pond is released into. And
Yeah, I think the point of this slide is to say there's a lot more area that's putting flow in than that area just where that pond is at, it's tributary to that pond. There's a lot of sub-watersheds all through here that contribute to the flow there. And it's not just the flow coming from Oak Forest that's causing these problems.
Can you point to where Natalie Creek starts? Because it's our understanding that it's pretty much included in the Forest Preserve Golf Course area. So what else is
Almost
feeding
all the way
into
to
there?
It starts,
Oak Park area.
it
Well,
starts with those
all
birds
along
on-
the creek, there's sewers that are tied in Midlothian, and all along the creek, there's flow coming in.
So wouldn't that be a longer time frame that the retention pond can hold on to the water because,
More water's going into it.
right, but it can hold more, right? And that didn't you, or wasn't it brought up that it was released too early, that apparently it's not allowed to fill up high enough and that there's been circumstances where you were here and somebody from Oak Forest was here and you guys were talking about texting each other when it was going to,
That was us.
Yeah.
We've
okay.
watched it happen so many times. It's kind of discouraging to feel like we're miscommunicating or we're misunderstanding because we've watched it so many times. When we are deluged by water, the hole is never 20% full. The creek starts in the golf course in the Cook County Forest Preserve. And so while we're looking for funding, they have no contribution or they do have a contribution? I guess that's our question.
I
So-
can address that a little bit
Great.
regarding the basin. As we're looking over like all, various upgrades along the creek, and the basin is one of those. And I think what we're finding is, in the list of issues up and down the creek, that's pretty far down. The reason why, when you guys are getting deluged, that you go over the basin and it's not full, is because generally speaking, detention basins are designed to hold about 100-year event.
Mhm.
So when you're getting like 7.5 inches of rain in 24 hours, you would go and look and that basin's full. The problem is when you get 2 or 3 inches of rain, you're getting flooded out, and you go look at the basin is not supposed to be full during that type of storm event, because it's not designed for that. And so we found that the basin is performing properly based on its design parameters. What we found that downstream of the basin, the creek over immediately downstream of the basin during the 100-year event, the creek is generally within its banks. And then there's approximately 200 acres of flow that comes in as it bends kind of south of the high school. And the creek overtops the bank and kind of goes into that Laverne Basin down there.
Right.
And again, when it curves back up towards Kilpatrick, the creek open area over some of those culverts in Oak Forest is about 60 or 70 square feet. And the culvert at Kilpatrick is maybe 20. And so that's a major area of concern. That's not really, the basin at the Oak Creek Basin doesn't really control the fact that that is so pinched down, and that's where it overtops and flows across the village. So, we're looking at options to perhaps better utilize the Oak Creek Basin, but it's not, at this point, it's not a major factor in kind of solving the issues.
But it
if that
seems
makes
pretty
sense.
simple to be of the interactive circumstance that I don't hear present.
And see, we are actually out there watching what happens every time, and it's very hard for us to be able to somehow relay that to you or show that to you. So if all of the water is only coming off of the golf course,
It's
And they have-
It's coming throughout the entire watershed. The water's
okay,
coming throughout
I guess
the
what I'm
entire
trying to
watershed.
say is, we had a particular Saturday this past summer, And we went out there because we were already having the overbanking very slowly. And they were bobcatting the debris out of the closest corner of that entire property to us. And when they did, we literally watched what looked like a tidal wave come crashing through. And within 20 minutes, we were under 2 feet of water. So regardless of where it's coming from, they unclogged the corner of the golf course. Don't know where else it was coming from, but it's our understanding that that is where Natalie Creek starts, and I don't mean to frustrate you, but we've watched it over and over again, bypass that hole, and within 15 to 20 minutes, we're sitting here not knowing what to do with it. And I don't want to keep telling you that story, but it's one of our greatest frustrations, because
And
we want to know why you're not going to stop the water where the mass amount of water is coming from. We know that where your starting project point is where we start to see it blow over as well, the 153rd and Laverne. You know, we watch it, the people on the cross, those poor people, it's heartbreaking to watch it, and then it just expands to here.
Can I make a comment also about
We
the
have
Oak
10
Creek
minutes left.
Reservoir? Is that, I totally understand your explanation about what the purpose of that reservoir is and why it would only be 20% full. But when it is only 20% full, the pump still goes on to empty that 20% water.
They don't retain it.
They don't retain it.
Here, how
They're
about
turning the-
this?
Wait. They're turning the pump on, and the water is getting pumped out of the hole into the creek when we're still being
At full
flooded up
force.
downstream.
Why can't
So
they
that's,
hold
so
more?
that's the problem, is I understand that if it's a certain amount of rainfall, it's only gonna be 20% full. And if it is only gonna be 20% full, then we're asking Oak Forest to hang on to that 20% of water until we're not flooded in Midlothian and Robbins on all the way down the creek anymore. Wait a day or two before they turn those pumps on.
And I have a waterproof camera in which I've been asked to go ahead and show up. Don't you grin, because I might call you in, at least on Facebook, and say, Harriet, you can always show up here too. You know, that's our intent, at
We're
least.
gonna learn to stream it to you guys this time.
Yeah, apparently we have
we're gonna-
Wi-Fi on one of the models.
We're gonna
But no,
stream
no,
it.
I have a pen, I have a paper. So who would I, for example, as you're watching me with this camera, mentioning, I intend on being out there at some point, who do I get to call? Do I go ahead and call Joe? Should, you know, all of a sudden, you know, the level be a really odd level kind of thing? You know what I mean? Just to have you guys alert and aware that we at least have questions about the man-made judgment?
At our first meeting, when all the agencies were here, the gentleman from Oak Forest, who's in charge of that pump, came in here and said, I get a phone call, and I'm told to pump out that reservoir now.
And I do it
Instead of holding that water when they know the creeks are full and they have residents flooding.
remember that comment. I think it was, actually, he made a phone call to Midlothian to make sure it was okay before they pumped out. Is that?
That's my bit, like
I know you don't want to.
Wait. He's saying it's correct.
He said, I wait till the rain stops and then I let it go. And then we all said, then that's what the problem is. That's what's causing us to flood even more so.
And as we're working through our project, we're meeting with the village of Midlothian and the city of Oak Forest officials, because they have problems in their town too. There's some people, I'm sure, from Oak Forest that are here. and
They're in our
they
group.
appreciate that.
Flooding issues too.
And they're all on this side of the hole.
Yeah, they're all on this
They're all
side.
on this
They're
side
all
of the
on the
hole.
So, but what direction do we go if we have concern?
If there's a debris or blockage or some kind of concern like that, like you mentioned, Helen, that they removed some debris and then the waters were released.
They were holding back the water with the debris and it was flooding over the
I don't think the
central
debris,
there.
yeah.
They said,
I think the
"Can you
debris
put up
probably
the
needed to
project
come
map
out, but
again?"
it needs to be reported.
Right, to who?
Debris comes with the water.
The debris removals can be reported through our website. We give you the website
Yeah.
information.
Okay, my internet is down, so now what?
You can make a phone call.
He lost power like usual.
Yeah, no, but no, and I'm sorry, I did sound facetious. Thank you for rescuing me right there.
We
But
lost
no, we
power.
lost power, for example, and it was a really 3 days plus.
Or some
Trees,
people did over
huge.
10 days.
And Joe lost power too.
Yeah, so I apologize for my tone, but phone number, who do we call?
When Oak Forest pumps that out, all right, it's not just Midlothian. My mom lives
I'm talking to Cedric, wherever you are. My mom has 3 acres in the biggest floodplain on that river, okay? It's vacant property. She has her house, it's 3 acres. And I talked to WRD, I talked to them about it, because I want her to move. I've been through it, I live in Tinley Park, where the watershed starts. I went through it when I was a kid, I've been through all these, I've listened to your guys' stories. I live in the highest point of Tinley Park because of it. I was 8 years old when we started flooding in the 80s, okay? When they built that detention pond on Laverne is when we started to flood. So obviously when they built detention ponds, they're pushing water towards it. That's what happened. Then they built, we never flooded until they put that pond in, on Laverne, okay?
And the golf course was built in the 80s too, isn't that a coincidence?
So that's when all that stuff got pushed in there, all right? Then what happened, they built the big detention pond. Ever since they built the big detention pond, I have looked at the FEMA maps, but all around that detention pond, that FEMA map has shrunk down Natalie Creek. If you look over where that detention pond is, the FEMA map shrunk in, because that's what detention ponds do. It stores the water. So, that being said, same thing, is they're pumping it out of the big detention pond, but they're still pushing it down. It goes into the detention pond on Laverne. Now granted, my mom's house hasn't flooded, but yes, every one of our neighbors' yards are full. So, I mean, that's...
So one of these things reminds me, so what came up again and again in the surveys was this notion that there were people pumping water down to Midlothian, that you are pumping water across to each other. You're all, there's this sort of continual circle. And the only way you can really start to tackle that is to actually try and hold as much water on site as possible. Building more holes isn't enough. You need to do it in a distributed way through every road and every parking lot and everything, and get your neighbours' communities to do the same. So one of the things I'd like to do, so I think there are sort of 2 things. We're going to have to close up now. 2 things is there's still plenty of time for you to mark up maps, to send in, to get your neighbours to fill in surveys if they haven't. The more people that we have with surveys filled in, the more people we get into the meetings, and then the more we start to figure out the solutions. And then the other thing is to actually start to get your help on where we can map potential solutions. Some of these things are quite low cost and easy to do, and they do have an impact, and particularly if they have a collective impact across the village.
If I tried to put any kind of plantings on my own property to help retain water, I don't know how. So I could do it wrong.
Absolutely, and so that should be part of our program. So individuals, you are all contributors unwillingly to the problem, as well as suffering from the problem. And so we need programs to help homeowners manage their own water, as well as the water on the public rights of way. And there are such programs. So CNT has a Rain Ready program that's entirely focused on homes.
And we have more questions and comments, so we're out of time.
Well, I'd like to say a couple things before we go. I just want to make a couple things clear from MWRD's perspective, okay? Cedric went through, he showed a project, showed 5 different detention basins, showed some culverts that are serving as restrictors that should be enlarged. That project, we're still finalizing the costs, we're still working through that. We expect to know in May about what it would cost. I can tell you now it's tens of millions of dollars, as you can imagine. I don't want anybody leaving here thinking MWRD's building that project. We still have to analyze, all the financial components of it. And like any government agency, we have a budget that we have to work within. So funding is something that has to be worked out for this project. The other thing is, the question was raised, what do you do if you see blockages on the waterway and the power's out and you can't get on the internet? Our dispatcher is there 24/7. They're always there. Their phone number there is 312-787-3575. As you can imagine, when there's a large storm event that's causing flooding throughout the whole county.
Can you repeat that number?
Sure, no
please?
problem. 787-3575. They get a lot of calls during rain events, but please call them, and if we could get someone out here to look at it and try to move the blockage, we would do that. I can tell you now, I see these guys out all the time, working, trying to get blockages out in the worst conditions, the village here. So, you know, we've tried to work together, and we try to solve these things, and we'll continue to work together. So again, we're gonna come back out here in May. We came out here, this meeting was scheduled for the rain ready kickoff. And so we agreed to come out to talk a little bit about what we're doing, what we're looking at, and that's why we're here. I'll tell you, I've heard a lot about this detention pond in Oak Forest. I understand the hydraulics of it and the hydrology of it. I also understand what you're saying, because I hear this all over the place about why are ponds only, you know, quarter full and I'm floating out downstream of that, why can't they hold more water? And we come back and we say, well, that thing's doing what it's designed to do. It's only supposed to take water during the 100-year event. Well, what we're not communicating properly to you is, we're not saying that nothing can be done there. We're just saying it is doing what it's designed to do. We don't believe that they're trying to flood out Midlothian or flood out their own residents. But that's still on our table. That's still something that we're looking at to see if something could be done there to catch rain in different size events. We're not just looking at the 100-year event. We are looking at the 2, 5, all the way through to the 100, okay? So we understand it's not a 100-year problem here. What a 100-year problem does come, it's going to be even worse than it is when you get 3 inches in 24 hours. So I just want to assure you, when we come back in May, we will have better answers, and we'll have better graphics to describe what's going on there currently, and maybe what could be done in the future, okay? I just want to assure you that, okay? That's all I got, thanks.
I have one thing, please. Colmar Street runs parallel kind of with Natalie. It's eroding. We're at this point right now, they're talking about digging it up. Is there anything that can be put into your plans with Colmar Street and Natalie Creek to divert water underneath it or around it, or however? You were talking about a culvert or something also, but right now, the whole back end of Colmar Street, the dead end, is actually eroded where it now just pools water.
I think what I'm going to do, I'll call Brian, and familiar with Brian. We'll let him go look at this. There may be something he could do as an interim solution to stabilize that bank. We've done it in different parts of the county where we put some recycled concrete down to stabilize the bank. So we'll take a look at that and see if there's something we can do there. Okay.
And just real quick too, as part of our study, my team personally would walk Natalie Creek from Pulaski all the way upstream to the Oak Creek detention basin. So we were actually along the banks and our waders in the creek, and we noted stream banks erosion, and we noted blockages in the culverts. So all those things are, I've kind of talked about some large global type fixes, but all those little things like stream bank stabilization, clearing out sediment, and all those types of things are also part of our plan. And you'll see that come May, a little more detail regarding that. But issues like that we are noticing, and we are proposing fixes to that.
So we want to encourage everyone to provide as much feedback as possible. So there's a map here on this side of the room. So please mark your ideas, mark where you see flooding. If you think it's a great idea to put a detention basin along the street, mark it on that map. Use some Post-it notes and some markers to make it happen. On this side, there are comments for MWRD, different ideas you may have for solutions, and feedback on the risk analysis that was done by CNT and the Army Corps of Engineers. It's extremely important that we get as much feedback as possible so that it helps MWRD, helps Army Corps of Engineers. It definitely helps us at CNT make more informed decisions as we go forward with our projects. Thank you guys so much for showing up. If you didn't fill out a survey, please fill out a survey. And if you know that your neighbor didn't fill out a survey, you can gently remind them to do so. And that's it. Thank you guys for coming. anyone need Post-its?